Go ahead and come on in and have a seat and we'll get started. All right. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody had a refreshing night's sleep. Today, we're talking about life lesson plan, and this one is specifically the days of Noah. Okay. Our reference verse comes from Matthew 24. Yeah, our reference verse comes from Matthew 24. And yeah, I can't do that. I wish I could. Go for it. Yeah, I wish I could do that. I can't whistle very loud. Click my fingers, okay? Okay. All right. Matthew 24, this is actually verse 37. I'm going to begin reading from verse 36 on through 41. I'm using the New International Version. The Bible that I have has a heading or caption. That caption says, "The day and the hour unknown." Beginning in verse 36 of Matthew 24, "No one knows about the day or the hour, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. That is how it will be the coming of the Son of Man. 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and the other left. 2 women will be grinding with a hand mill, one will be taken and the other left." Right. So the overarching theme of the passage I just wrote is what? Yeah, we know the day and the hour is unknown. That's what's said in the little heading I've got in my Bible. It's NIV. I'm sorry? That's extremely accurate. I love your observation because God didn't even disclose it to Noah when it was going to occur. All he said is, "All right, Noah, get the animals in. Yep, head them in, move them out. Yep. Okay, get in there. You and the boys and all the spouses. Go ahead, get in." Who closed the door? Sure, the Lord did. Catch that in just a second. Something I found interesting about the initial part of the passage, but about that day or hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son. Now here's the confusion I encountered, which I don't know the answer. If God the Father and Son and the Holy Spirit are one, how is it that the Father knows and the Son does not? I do not have an answer. If anybody would like to educate me, I stand willing, because I don't know the answer. True. Just as employees hoard stuff from their employers, but yeah, I didn't. That was one of the first things that struck out and grabbed my eye, sucked them to the page, and I just said, "Gee, I don't know the answer." Yeah, go ahead. Sure, share it. I wish I could validate that one way or the other. Yeah. Since the Son came down from heaven, I kind of thought they would be pretty much one, all 3 of them, just one. I didn't have an answer for that, but anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting. Here's something else I found a little bit interesting, just the way it was written. The writer shares with us 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and the other left. Now notice what happened to the one that was taken. The other one's left. What happened to the other one? Well, let me ask you this. Did he die? This says taken. Excellent. That's exactly what I wanted to point out. Yeah. We're looking at the time of the next coming, and that's how it'll be the coming of the Son of Man. That's what we're looking at. So it says 2 men be in the field, one will be taken, the other left. That phrase, one will be taken, I want you to keep that kind of in the back of your mind for a moment. We're gonna hit up on that just a little bit. I'm sorry, go ahead. Right. Surrendered at least a portion of knowledge. Heavenliness, or yeah, okay, sure. Right. Okay. While I can begin to digest that, I'm looking at it on our timeline in that Christ, as far as we know, had not yet come to earth to surrender all that. But again, a plausible possibility. Go ahead. That's right. I right. I like the way you put that. Um, Hopefully everybody heard Harold. It was about false prophets, or one means as a tool, one means to identify them. You've heard me say it before in the congregation that when somebody comes out, like they did back in 2012, and they said, I think it was like December 21st, let's see, that would be the solstice. Yeah. Well, the point was, when they said December 21st, 2012, what does that mean to us? Not a skippy thing, because nobody knows. So when they say December 21st, 2012, what that is a guarantee. That's a warranty. It ain't going to happen. That's exactly what it is. Nobody knows. All right. Continuing on. Let's see. Many of you may remember in 1975 what we tagged, or the media tagged, the boat people. Who are they? The boat people. Not Cuba. Close. Vietnam, that's right. Vietnam was in a terrible state of war. We had U.S. involvement over there. Nixon tried to pull the troops out. I guess Ford finished the job. I'm not certain how that worked out. I was a very disinterested teenager back then. But we had a circumstance of the boat people. Now, we weren't the only ones that encountered this. The world did. There was a lot of local countries, Malaysia, China, Hong Kong, because that's not really part of China, Taiwan, the Philippines. A lot of other countries experienced the export of Vietnamese people from Vietnam. Okay. Now, Vietnam was, of course, split north and south, but long story short, we encountered some of those boat people. They came and drifted on our waters. I think it was 1979-ish. Of all the countries I named, let's see, Hong Kong, China, Taiwan, the Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, and the United States. Now, listen carefully. What do the following group of people have in common? The South Vietnamese boat people, Noah and his family, Christians of today. Oh, who said that? Oh, man. Oh, boom, spoiled my little... Yeah, it's it. They were saved through water. Okay, I know I use that term a little bit figuratively. Yes, yeah. Water was kind of a catalyst, or the medium which was used. 25 hours brought your dad? Or your Yeah, ancestor. Cool. Yeah, my grandfather came from China. I've never met the person. Like, so, yeah, they were saved through water. Water was a medium, the catalyst in which they were saved. Not talking about salvation, but delivered from persecution. It's important that the Bible uses the theme of water over and over again to do miraculous things. There was a lot of miraculous things back in the Old Testament. Everybody remembers the 10 plagues of Egypt. Water was turned to, blood. That was a pretty yucky situation. It's strange because water was both a deliverance and a destruction. Well, that brings us right back to the days of Noah. Noah, well, do you find it strange that Noah built an ark according to God's orders and didn't experience peer pressure from others? That would take a substantial degree of faith. I can tell you this. I don't remember who the person was. Could have been a guy like, Roy Rogers or something. I don't know. I am the sum of all of whom I have met, is what the person said. I forgot who the quote was. Okay. That is in great part true. Great part. Everybody influences us. What should be the reciprocation? What's that? Oh, exactly, Krista. We should be influencing them. Now, as proclaimed Christians, we should be doing a little bit more influencing, at least spiritually, at least towards good. Go ahead, Larry. Yes, I hope everybody heard Larry. He said, whether you want to or not, you're an influence. Now, what does that lead to? I'm sorry, what is the connotation if you picked up on his language? Good or bad, that's exactly it. Yeah. You don't have to be a good influence. You can be a bad influence too. Okay. All right, good. Everybody absorbed that. That's good. All right. I know that's not a decoy slide. I do have slides, honest. In Matthew 24, for the passage that we read 36 through 41, we're talking in part about maintaining a vigil. What's that? We're talking in part about maintaining a vigil. What's that? What'd you say? Watching, exactly. Looking out for. Something else goes but beside watching, something further. There we go. Okay, so some kind of action, not just watching, because that's an action too, but something else is involved. A couple weeks ago we talked about being doers of the word. When we are watching or maintaining that vigil, there's a reason for it. Okay? In this case, preparation. We got to be ready. Yeah. We find a lot of stuff that is kind of an analogy to that. It says the verse regards the ignorance as the precise moment of its occurrence. That's Matthew 24:37. Second coming as it was with the flood. Let's see. Compare it to this. The United States Armed Forces. How about the U.S. Border Patrol? What about Christ? What vigil did Christ maintain? Similar to Noah. He was watching. Well, let me substitute a word in there. He was looking. He was looking. He was looking for the lost. He maintained a vigil for the lost, especially those who either needed healing of some kind. Boy, did he do some bizarre and just incredible healing. Miracles, I'd say. Ezekiel 34, it's a single verse, you don't have to turn there. Ezekiel 34:11 says, "For thus says the Lord God, behold, I myself will search for my sheep and seek them out." I'm impressed with that. I like that. I'm really happy about that. Ezekiel 34 again in 16, "I will seek the lost, bring back the scattered, bind up the broken and strengthen the sick. But the fat and the strong I will destroy and feed them with judgment." Um, why would you bind up the broken? What is bind? Bandage is a good one. I was thinking of something a little bit different. Well, set broken bones is a good one. Bind up the broken. In this auditorium right here and now, are we not bound? Aren't we? Doris is an encouragement to me. I know that she suffers a spectrum of ailments in her life. There she is encouraging me. We are bound in that way. That kind of conviction is what God's looking for. Noah bound himself to God. He bound himself to God's word. Going on in Matthew 18, this is in verse 12. What do you think? If a man has 100 sheep and one of them has gone astray, does he not leave the 99 on the mountains and go to search for the one that is straying? I'm so glad. There's a lot of places in the Bible that I make myself an analogy to the people in the Bible. This is one of them. Being up on that mountaintop, scared, shivered, alone, it's dark, I'm frightened, I don't know what to do, I'm confused, blah, blah, blah. There's Christ for me. Now, I'm blessed. I've got brothers and sisters right here, I hope, that would do the same for me, you know. And in return, I'm hoping that they would find it within their hearts that they'd feel comfortable that I would strive to do the same for them. Okay. Let's see. I just read Matthew 18, and it says, does he not leave the 99 on the mountains and go search for the one that is straying? In order for the shepherd to know that one of the sheep is missing, what would have to have happened? There you go, observation. Yeah. He'd have to maintain some kind of a vigil. What are you going to do? Count, for 400 legs, come up with 396 and say, hey, one's missing. That's not the way to do it. You can't keep inventory like that. You have to maintain a vigil. You got to continually watch for whatever's coming. Noah did this. Noah was watching for what was coming. Noah was also making preparations for what was coming. Well, we know it's the flood. Noah didn't know the exact time or hour. At least the Bible doesn't disclose that. It just says, he built an ark, here's the cypress wood, and here's the specifications, and he went to do it, and he did it. Maintaining a vigil. Can you think of somebody else in the New Testament, or a parable in the New Testament, where somebody else was maintaining a vigil? Father, bride, son, okay. I was thinking the prodigal son. Yeah, I was kicking around the prodigal son. Let's turn to Luke 15. There we go. Luke 15, I'm going to begin here in verse. Here we go. I'm going to begin in about verse 17. There it is. Verse 17. Luke 15, 17, and continuing. When he came to his senses, this is the son, he said, how many of my father's hired men have good food to spare, and here I am starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired men. So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to the father, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Okay, most of us are very familiar with this. Where's the vigil in that story? Give me an example. Where's the vigil in that story? How do you know? You're right. How do you know? Oh, that's the answer. Yeah. Look at verse 20. Verse 20 says, so he got up and went to his father, but while he was still a long way off. I'm just going to pick a number for the sake of reference. Doesn't say that in the Bible. I'm going to say a mile. Okay. Would you notice somebody coming towards you, especially if it was your own kin, that was a mile off? I don't think I would notice that off the corner of my eye. He saw him coming from a long way off. How is that possible? Go ahead. That's it. That's it. He was looking for him. He wasn't waiting for the son to come back. He was looking for his son to come back. That's how Jesus treats us. I'm so thankful for that. Everything's there. Everything that we need, the message is clear, just as it was back in the days of Noah. Christ is not only waiting for us, he's actively seeking us. Because the New Testament tells us that he is looking for the lost. Yeah, a physician does not look for those who are well. He looks for the sick. That's the analogy that's used. He's looking for us. I'm so glad. Okay, now let's see if this works. Oh, wait a minute. Before I do that, some questions I thought that somebody should have been asking Noah. Say, Noah, well, what's rain? I think they should have been asking that question. I don't know that they did or didn't. What's rain? In the Old Testament, we have no record of rain falling. Of course, most of us know what rain is. Okay, some moisture in the air gathers enough that it precipitates. A cloud forms. When enough collects together, or on a piece of dust or whatever catalyst, then dew or some kind of moisture falls to the earth. If it collects in sufficient quantity, it's rain. Ta-da! Scientific explanation. But that's rain, right? We don't have any record in the scriptures up to this point where rain has occurred. Rain hasn't fallen yet. We're kind of looking around here. This is about Genesis chapter 5 and 6. Well, it goes 5, 6, 7, and 8. So in the days of Noah, no rain yet. They should have been asking something like this. Hey, Noah, how you going to launch this boat? Now, we don't see any recorded bodies of water in which Noah built this vessel in proximity. I think it's safe to assume, and call it just an assumption, not a conclusion, that he did it on dry land. Okay? How are you going to get this boat to the water? One last question they might have been thinking to ask. Noah, regarding this ark, how are you going to close the door? Oh, I guess they got this ramp going up there, and it acts as the door on the flip side. And people are sitting there wondering, no pulleys, no ropes. I don't know. How are you going to close this door? Well, we know the scriptures say that God closed the door. I think it's commendable in the face of possible jesting, laughter, ridicule, or anything like that Noah had the faith in God and keeping that vigil, and he said, no, this is going to happen, and God told me to do it, and that settles it. I'm hoping we'd have the same convictions today. I'm sorry? Right. Yeah. Right. And there's a whole lot of fill in the blanks that we could do. And that's why I described it as the Bible doesn't mention rain to this point. Could there have been rain, especially somewhere else on the planet? Certainly. I don't know. I wasn't there. Joe? Oh. Yeah, I didn't see it. Okay, I thought just maybe he'd squeak by. Yeah. It's interesting what the Bible mentions. It's very interesting when we have the capacity to fill in the blanks of what the Bible does not say. And sometimes we're not as careful as we need to be about what the Bible doesn't say. All right, slideshow time. All right. I was doing a little genealogy here for the days of Noah, and kind of get out of the way of the screen here. This is the lineage of Cain and Seth. Well, we know what happened to Abel. Cain, his lineage is not so specified in the form of years. It just says something like Cain had Enoch, Enoch had Irad, Irad was the father of Mehujael. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'll chop up this guy's name. Number 6 is Methushael. Okay, and so on. That's really about all the Bible says about that lineage. It doesn't describe dates. That span could have been easily 1,000 years. I really don't know. We do have a reasonable concept of Noah's lineage off of Seth. Okay. I counted 10 generations down to Noah. Okay. So Lamech had a few kids. One of them was Noah. Most of these fathers, if you will, because that's the way genealogy was traced, it mentions other sons and daughters. Noah's does not. It says three boys, and that's it. Okay, just in case you were wondering, because I know I was wondering who are the oldest people. Now, we're only considering the first 10 generations of the Bible. And if you look on there, I ranked them 1 through 10. That was generation number 8, 6, 10, 1, etc. The names are given there in the quantity of years. Now, one thing we don't have entirely clear was what a year was. Well, today we operate under the use of what? What kind of calendar? Yeah, Gregorian calendar. Right. Right. Okay. The months could have been in greater duration. Who knows? But we, at the time of Christ, we were using what kind of calendar? Yep. Somebody said it. I thought we were using the Julian calendar. Yeah. Unfortunately, Julius Caesar wanted to live in immortality. Julius, July. So did Caesar Augustus. Augustus, August. So they put their 2 cents, 2 months worth into the calendar. So there they are. That started actually about 45 BC. Just a little bit before Christ came on the scene, we were using the Julian calendar. Most of the world migrated to the Gregorian calendar, which was first enacted about 1582-ish, our time. Not everybody hopped on board immediately, especially the United States. We were a little stingy about that. We couldn't even handle the metric system, so we really didn't get them on board with that till about, 1700s, the late 1700s is when we got on board with the Gregorian calendar. Okay, so this is where all these are. I highlighted Genesis 9 for Noah because that's where we discovered that Noah lived 950 years. Now, it's a little bit peculiar the way the verbiage is worded for this generation of people. This is the first through 10 generations of about 20 or 21 that I'm going to briefly touch on this morning. The first 10 generations spans over 2,000 years if you take it up to Noah's death. Like that? Well, unfortunately, you can't see that very well. It's on the next slide, Larry. I did kind of chop that out, like you said. I did. We're looking here at Adam and Seth, and we're looking at Cain's lineage in the lower left-hand corner. It's in green. I apologize for the lack of clarity. Unfortunately, the resolution wasn't quite that good. It looked beautiful on my screen at home. It looked gorgeous. But yeah, this one's kind of thin. Back then, it was very common for people, at least in these generations, to live over 900 years. That's an astronomical amount of time to be on the surface of the earth, especially today. Okay. So we're looking at Adam and Seth up there. Cain's in the lower left-hand corner. Abel, well, he didn't make the cut, sorry. Over the lower right-hand side, it says the flood. Now, you see the letters F-A-C in the flood? It's got a laser pointer? Not today. Following Adam's creation is what that means. Following Adam's creation. It becomes a little bit more important when you look at the top. If you look at up there, Adam starts out at year 0 for reference. Okay. There's a lot of theological debate on if Adam was either the first or only created. We won't get into that this morning, but I'm going to use him as a reference and say 0. Go ahead. Right. Right. Okay. I believe you in the second part. The first part, we're going to have to talk. Yeah. Because otherwise, I would have to predicate that with Bill, I'm going to open up a can of worms. I'm not going to do that. Needless to say that there leaves a little bit of room in there for misunderstanding. And I'll tell you up front, I've talked with people. Leonard's one of them. We've talked at pretty decent length, actually. And we can bat around about things like, okay, where did this person come from, like Cody was saying. But I don't know if that's a salvation stopper. I don't know. Yeah. Right. Right. It's interesting to kick around, but yeah, we'll continue with the Cain, lineage of Cain in the lower left-hand corner. Again, not many dates are given here. If you want to look into it in the best detail available, look at Genesis chapter 4. Tell you about all you can. Okay, Seth is kind of interesting. Now, here's where we get into a little bit more here. And Seth's lineage leads us to Noah. Now, Noah's on the bottom of this chart or timeline. Hopefully you can see a fraction of it. Now, it's not too bad. It's conceivable that the people who have a square around their name, Enoch, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Methuselah, and Lamech. It's conceivable that they knew all 10 generations that you're looking at right here. It's very possible because their timelines, their life intersects with all those people. Now, if you look at Enoch's, you notice something about Enoch? All right. You dog. Nice job. Nice job. Yes, Enoch has a very short lifetime. Okay. But there's something else that we know about Enoch, too. Yeah. Harold said he didn't die. That was the time I asked you to tuck some phrase in the back of your head. He was taken. That's right. The Bible does not describe Enoch as dying. Enoch was taken. And we read from the passage back here that there are two men working the field. One is taken, one is not. It didn't say one dies. It said one is taken. Larry, do you have one? Guess not. Okay. So we're looking at the time of the flood. Now, the width of that blue box where it says the flood, and if you can read that, that says 1,656 following Adam's creation. Okay. I'm not saying the year 1556, just so you know. Okay. So let's continue on here. Noah, it's described in Genesis that he had 3 sons. It also is not disclosed, like everybody else, OSAD, if you can see it on the chart. Other sons and daughters. That is not used to describe Noah. Okay. Now, about Japheth and Shem and Ham. Those were the 3 boys, or offspring, and the only one I could find was Shem's longevity at 500 years. I couldn't find the duration of the other 2. I drew them out to about the same length. The chart describes those lines, that's their longevity. They are relatively proportional. Okay. And the chart is shown in proportion. That's about right. So, going on to the next one, there's Noah and his sons right there. That's what we're going to focus on in the next few minutes. And this was something kind of peculiar. Every time the sequence of the sons of Noah are mentioned, they're always mentioned in this sequence for I don't know what reason. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Of what we know in the scripture, we can confirm that Ham was definitely the youngest. It doesn't say by how far. There are scholars that would take an educated guess. The scriptures do tell us in kind of a not too detailed mention that when Noah was 500 years old, he had Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Yeah, that's what we're led to believe. They're triplets. That's the first thing I thought. Thanks, Larry. To break the ice on that one. That was the first thing I thought. I said, wow, trips. Okay, cool. Ham turned out to be the youngest. There was a little bit of competing verbiage in there for Shem and Japheth, but all of these references, Genesis 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, and 1 Chronicles 4, when they mention Noah's sons, all of them state Shem, Ham, and Japheth. If somebody gets the answer to that one, please let me know. Okay, so a little more research here. We know that Shem lived 500 years. Supposedly, Japheth is most widely credited with being the oldest. The problem was the footnote that I read in Genesis, the verse says in verse 21, sons were also born to Shem, whose older brother was Japheth. The footnote reads, if it's inserted there, sons were also born to Shem, the older brother of Japheth, which changes the meaning. So I guess there's a little bit of debate about who's older. Well, I don't know if it's going to make that big of a difference. In Genesis 10, yeah, we did confirm that earlier. It says in the NIV as well, because of the sin that Ham had committed. He was said, what the youngest son had done. So, Genesis 10:32. These are the clans of Noah's sons according to their lines of descent within their nations. From these, the nations spread out over the earth after the flood. Now, the flood didn't last. The flood didn't last as long as the timeline I had up there. It began at the point in the timeline. I just made it that big so you guys could read it. Still have enough time. Okay, sons of Japheth. I didn't go too much in detail on these. The only two are Javan and Gomer that had offspring that are mentioned in the Bible. In Genesis, that's as far as I got. If there's anybody else anywhere else, it doesn't say, or I couldn't find it. Okay, the Semites, that comes from Shem. Okay, and there's the offspring, and there's the sequence, and there's the generations. Shelah, and then is the father of Eber, is the father of Peleg. I kept saying Pegleg for the longest. And Joktan. Now Joktan, it gets a little bit important here. Okay, he has a lot of offspring. We'll get to those in just a second. And of course, Aram. Aram has 4 kids that we know of. Okay. Here's where we started weeding out the other sons and daughters. Now the Hamites were pretty important. These are the offspring, the generations of Ham. Put doesn't show any offspring. I don't know if he did have any. There's none listed. What do you notice about the sons of Egypt? I hope you can read that. Now, you might not be able to read that. Well, yeah. In blue, second from the bottom, in blue are the Philistines. That's where they came from, Shem's lineage. Yeah. And then Canaan. Now, I noticed the majority of these suffixes are ites. I look over at Canaan, the Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites. The only one that's not an ite is from Sidon, the Sidonians. Okay. This is probably also the same reason that the French are so advanced in medicine today. They had to be. If you look up at the list, I'm sitting here going like this. If you look up at the list, can you imagine if somebody had to go to war with the capital city of France? They would be known as the parasites. That's why they're so good at medicine today. That was a joke, you may laugh. Right. Getting back down to the days of Noah, since I failed as a comedian, we're looking at Noah's time. Yeah, we're looking at Noah's timeline here. It goes just over, Noah himself goes just a little over 2,000 years following Adam's creation. Okay, I'm going to stick that in the upper left-hand corner. We've achieved 10 generations of people so far from Adam, referencing Adam, 10 generations. Okay, now, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, they make the 11th generation, so we'll stick with Shem for right now. Here are all of them, all the way down to Abraham, otherwise known as, complete the sentence. Abraham, yeah. Abram was later named Abraham. Okay, so we're not looking very far this time. In fact, it's just a fraction past maybe 2100-ish, kind of, sort of. Yeah. I got about 2056 in reading up there. I hope I changed those dates accordingly. But these people didn't wait so long to have kids. If you noticed in the other slide, These people kind of relatively waited for a long time to have kids, right there. Some of those dates are, you can't see the numbers very well, but some of them are like 130 years for Adam, 105 for Seth, until they had the first kid that's mentioned. Because they did have other sons and daughters. We don't know what sequence that is. Okay? And that's the caution I wanted us all to be wary of in the Bible, that it doesn't say, for example, that Enoch had Kenan. It doesn't say that Kenan was the oldest. It does say that Enoch had other sons and daughters. So that's just something we got to be careful of. All right, so let's get back to the other slide. Okay, and here we are all the way down. You count them down from Noah at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and Abram to become Abraham is the 20th. He is the 20th in the genealogy. So all of these are mentioning other sons and daughters. And let's see, which was there one that did not? Couldn't remember. Yeah, Noah's was the only one in that line that didn't mention other sons and daughters. Okay. Let's see, Abraham, am I reading that right? Yep. Okay. All right. On the left-hand side, in the lower left-hand corner, you'll look at Japheth being born about 1556, following Adam's creation. About 1656 following Adam's creation was the flood. So actually, the Bible does specify that Shem was 98, or 2 years after the flood, when Shem was 100, is when he had his next offspring. Okay. So that's why we can say, okay, Shem's, we can kind of narrow that down on the timeline. Okay. Here's something I thought was kind of interesting too. I wish the lines came out better. I apologize. 19th generation is Terah, 20th is Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Abram, he later becomes Abraham in Genesis 17. He marries Sarai, she becomes Sarah, exactly, Genesis 17 as well. Sarah had an Egyptian slave, of course. Here's the days of Noah. We're going way past here. This is his son. She had an Egyptian slave, Hagar. Hagar bore whom? Ishmael. And of course, Sarai bore Isaac. Exactly. Okay. I put down the definitions in there that I extracted from the New International Version. Isaac, he laughs. Naturally, because Sarai laughed. Okay. When Sarai had Isaac, she was Sarai. When when Hagar had Ishmael, he was Abraham. Okay. And he was about, 99 years old, right? Okay. Now, that's okay, except Isaac. I want you to keep Isaac in mind for just a moment. If you look at Nahor's line, he marries Milcah. Now, Milcah is whom? It's his brother's daughter. It's his niece. Milcah is his niece. Haran had Milcah. Okay. Over on the right-hand side, under Haran, it doesn't say in the Bible that Haran was married, but he did have Lot, Milcah, and Ishka. If I pronounce that right. Iscah. Yeah. Milcah was Nahor's, not sister, but niece. Yeah. So Nahor was Milcah's uncle. That's how things rolled back in that family. And if you go down there to Milcah, below Nahor, there are 8 offspring named. The last one I put in there was Bethuel. Bethuel was the father of Rebekah. And who do we know Rebekah to be? Isaac's wife. Yeah, Isaac's wife. And I put in there incest. Now, that's how we view it today with our laws. Many states in the United States have laws like that say, okay, this is a direct relationship, you are blood related, nope, you can't marry, otherwise it's some form of incest. Okay. The same thing happened between Nahor and Milcah. So back then, it was common that close relationships did marry. Now, to this point, I couldn't find like where a brother and a sister married. Okay. But just go ahead. Yep. Bible doesn't specify where Cain's wife came from. And we can't draw the conclusion, although we could make the assumption, we can't draw the conclusion that she was his sister. Because the Bible simply doesn't say. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. That's all the slides I have for you. I hope you found the genealogy interesting. I hope it kind of inspires you to think along the lines of Scripture, paying attention, of course, what it does say, and being cautious about what it doesn't say. Okay. All right. Let's all get ready for our assembly, okay? Thank you.